Alright, today we're working on our Kubota tractor here. It's the ZD1211. And this is what we've got to do the oil change. Most specific right here, you're gonna need a 14mm wrench. And we just got this Kubota oil from our local dealer so that it's the right for the engine. And then we've also got some of the regular oil change tools. And we're just gonna get right into it. So we've already had this machine running for about 10 minutes. Now we've stuck the drain pan underneath. Then we're gonna lift up the hood, and there's your whole engine. Here's the oil filter we're gonna get to in a bit. And then underneath is where we're gonna get to draining the oil. We're gonna take the dipstick out here so that it drains the oil smoother. And now coming underneath from the left side of the machine where the oil filter is, on the front of the oil pan, there's just a little drain with a bolt, so stick your wrench on there. You could also use a ratchet. Okay, once you get it loose, then you can usually do it by hand. Just make sure that you got a bucket underneath. Once it's at the very end, you want to put your bolt back in. And then once it's started and it stops the dripping, then you want to remember just to wipe off the rest of the oil pan with a rag. Just because then it won't burn the oil and it keeps things clean. Now on the side of the engine now, we've got the drain plug in and we're going to work on the oil filter. Make sure your drain pan is underneath. And make sure there's no hoses or wire looms in the way, and then just crack it. There you go. So once it's loose with an oil filter wrench, you should probably be able to do it by hand now. So there we go. You can see that's where the oil filter is connected right there, and then over there is for the dipstick. So you want to check the threads and make sure that it's not dirty and that it doesn't have metal shavings and anything that would sort of be alarming. It would probably also be a good idea to wipe down the mating surface for the O-ring, so right around the edge here with a rag, and then also wipe down this member. So before you install the new oil filter, it's probably a good idea to check that it's the same one that came off the machine. The easiest way to do that is to just look for the part number. So we got the part number, it's a little dirty there. We've got the same part number there, so we're good to go. Now we're just going to fill the oil filter with some oil. This helps for when you start the engine the first time and it sort of has oil already into the filter. So we just tip it around, spin it around, and a lot of the oil will get absorbed into the filter. We can probably do that one more time. And then with your new oil, you can just spread it around on the O-ring. It gives it a better seat. And that's it, we can go install it now. So a good sort of recommendation or rule of thumb is to get the filter hand tight and then do an extra quarter to a half turn with an oil filter wrench or something else to just ensure that it stays on but it's not too tight. On this model, it does get stuck right here on this hose. Just be careful you don't damage it. Right here you can see there's 200 hours, so that's what I'll write on the oil filter. So the reason I write 200 is so that I know when to change it next time. If the computer fails or something goes wrong, it's nice to have a backup just to know how much I've gone on this oil change. Okay, now on top of the engine, there's the oil cap, so you can just crack that open. And you want a long, tall funnel. You just gotta be careful because right there it says hot. That's the exhaust, and you wouldn't want to burn yourself. This is the oil we're using from Kubota. It would be a good time just to check that the O-ring is still in good condition and not cracked or anything, because that could lead to problems with the oil. This machine takes 3.9 liters, so we'll go with almost all of this jug. This is a 5-liter jug, and then once we get to about 3.5 liters, we'll probably start checking it. One thing to do is just quickly come back down here, check that it's not leaking from the drain bolt or from the oil filter. On the dipstick, we're actually above the mark there, but it's because we haven't run the engine yet, so we need to turn it on briefly and let the oil cycle, and then we can top it up. On the gauge here, this is your oil light for the oil pressure, and you want to make sure that shuts off pretty quickly once you start it this first time, and that'll ensure that there is not low oil pressure. If this light stays on, you want to shut down the machine and figure out what's wrong before damaging it. So the machine takes 3.9 liters of oil, and if you check here, this is a 5-liter jug. You can see that there's one, there's two. So 5 minus 3.9, you're gonna just have 1.1 about. So that shows us that we need a little bit more oil. So there we are, we topped it up and it's right at the line. And a good rule of thumb, fill it up all the way to the line or even a little more, because the tractor is not gonna make oil. All right, we're all done with this. Ready to go mow.